You've probably heard this a million times. Artificial intelligence is a digital brain. It's a nice, simple metaphor, right? But the real story, well, it's so much weirder and honestly way more interesting. Because what if I told you the entire field of AI was pretty much built on a misunderstanding?
Yep, you heard that right. Complete rubbish. That's a historian of science talking about the foundational idea that kickstarted this whole revolution. The entire digital brain story we tell ourselves, it was wrong from the very, very beginning.
And that right there is the big question we're going to unpack. We're about to go down two totally different roads to intelligence. One was carved out by millions of years of messy, beautiful evolution. The other? It was built in just a few decades with cold, hard math. And trust me, the answers are going to surprise you.
So our story kicks off way back in 1943. Two scientists, McCulloch and Pitts, came up with this super simple mathematical idea of what a neuron is. They basically pictured it as a little on-off switch. Now, they were completely wrong about how the brain actually works, but they accidentally created the granddaddy of every single AI system we use today. Okay, so let's start with path number one, the OG intelligence. We're going to take a look at the absolute marvel of engineering that is the 3-pound universe sitting right between your ears. Just try to wrap your head around that number, 86 billion neurons, each one a tiny, living, computing cell. The scale we're talking about here is it's cosmic. So you can just throw that whole on and off switch idea right out the window. A single one of your neurons is way more like a tiny, squishy supercomputer. It's not just using electricity, it's communicating with a whole language of chemicals. The timing and rhythm of its signals carry meaning. And the craziest part, it physically rewires itself as it learns. It changes. And here's something you felt yourself. Think about it. When you learn a new language, you don't suddenly forget how to ride a bike, right? Well, an AI often does. It's this thing called catastrophic forgetting, and it's a massive problem for AI that our brains figured out how to solve millions of years ago. And the brain does all of this, all that complex thought, all that creativity, all that memory, on just 20 watts of power. That's less than a dim light bulb. It is hands down the most ridiculously efficient computer we know of anywhere in the universe. All right, let's switch gears and look at the second path to intelligence. While biology was busy perfecting this amazing chemical computer, AI took a sharp turn into the world of pure mathematics. And it turns out, that's an incredibly powerful path too. So from that simple on and off idea in 1943, we get the perceptron in 58, one of the first machines that could actually learn from experience. Fast forward to today, and the huge AI models we have are really just the direct descendants of that, just with millions and millions of those simple math units stacked in these incredibly deep layers. And here it is. This is the fundamental difference. Forget all that messy, complex biology. At the absolute heart of the most powerful AIs in the world is a little piece of math this simple. It's just clean, elegant math. It's a whole universe away from that living, breathing cell it was supposed to be copying.
So how does all this simple math learn to do something complex? Like C? Well, think of it like an assembly line. The first layer of the network just learns to spot basic stuff, like lines and colors. The next layer takes those lines and combines them into textures and shapes. The layer after that puts those shapes together into parts, like an eye or a nose or a wheel, until finally the last layer puts all the parts together and says, aha, that's a cat.
Now, the way an AI learns is through a process called backpropagation. When it gets something wrong, a sort of master signal gets sent backwards through the entire system, telling every single little unit exactly how it needs to tweak itself. It's a totally top-down, global adjustment. The brain couldn't be more different. Its learning is all local, chemical, and bottom-up. They are just fundamentally alien to each other.
So, now we've met our two contenders, the biological master and the digital apprentice. Let's put them head-to-head and really see just how deep these differences go. First off, just what they're made of. The brain is what you might call wetware. It's living, physical cells that are constantly growing and changing in 3D space. And AI, though, it's pure software. It's just a bunch of abstract numbers or weights living in a computer's memory. Its architecture is totally fixed. And what about how they learn? Well, your brain never stops learning. Every single second is a new data point. AI is totally different. It gets trained in these huge batches on gigantic static datasets. You can see a picture of a zebra once and know what a zebra is for life.
and AI needs to see millions of pictures.
And then there's the energy bill. I mean, look at this. It's not even a contest. To train the GPT-3 model one single time took over 1 million kilowatt-hours of electricity. Your brain, on the other hand, thinking and dreaming and worrying 24/7 for a whole year, uses about 175. The efficiency gap is just staggering.
But this might be the biggest difference of all. At its core, your brain is trying to build a model of the world to understand why things happen. It's searching for cause and effect. Current AI, for all its power, is a pattern-matching machine on an epic scale. It finds statistical correlations. It knows what things tend to appear together in its data. But it has no real-world experience, no common sense, no why.
Okay, so they're completely different. Does that mean one is better than the other? Is it a competition? Not at all. And actually, this is where the story gets really, really cool. Because these two very different kinds of intelligence are starting to have a really productive conversation.
By looking at the brain, AI researchers are getting some amazing new ideas. They're building super-efficient neuromorphic chips that mimic the brain's structure. They're creating different kinds of artificial neurons instead of just one. They're even training AIs inside of virtual bodies so they can get a feel for physics and the real world.
And believe me, it is a two-way street. AI is becoming this indispensable tool for scientists who study the brain. They can use AI to run simulations they could never do in a living person, to help decode the incredibly complex signals our neurons are sending, and maybe even to discover some universal rules of how any intelligence works.
And I think this quote just nails it. The goal isn't really to build a perfect copy of a human brain anymore. It's something bigger. It's about exploring all the possible ways intelligence can exist, using both nature and math as our guides.
So, at the end of the day, the real takeaway is this. We have to stop thinking of AI as just a cheap imitation of a brain. We need to see them for what they are, two profoundly different but equally powerful paths to intelligence. One isn't a copy of the other. They are just two completely different answers to the same question. How do you make sense of the world?
And that leaves us with one final incredible thought. As we continue to build these alien minds, these intelligences that think in pure math, what will they end up teaching us about ourselves? What new light will they shine on the biological miracle that's happening inside our own heads right now?